Hello everybody, I'm sitting together here with Dean Leffingwell, the founder of a very impressive and successful movement in Agile management, the Scaled Agile Framework, or SAFe. So Dean, thanks a lot for making yourself available and also giving me the opportunity to put or to pose a couple of questions to you. So what is unique about SAFe?
So I started this process with a kind of all-in opinion that Agile development was simply better than any form of development I've experienced over my career. So after 20 or 25 years of doing things like waterfall development and then iterative development, I discovered agility. I discovered what it was like to be part of an Agile team. I mean, I think Scrum, even more so than XP, defined what a team construct was. I started using it in my programs as a consultant for a number of companies that I was coach and investor and startup VP in. It worked better than anything else. And the challenge that I faced, though, is that I also like to help people build big systems. So the question became, is it possible to have the dynamic power, the self-expression power of an Agile team applied at enterprise scale? Well, there was no framework for that. Had there been one, I would have simply applied it. I even kind of looked around to see if there was one. But there were even opinions that you shouldn't scale Agile. If you scale it, you would kill it. But to me, the goal was to create environments where we could create high-performing Agile teams that collaborated and cooperated towards a larger purpose. And I remember one of the first engagements I had was with a company where we weren't sure if Agile would scale. This is a decade or so ago. And I asked a question. I'm not sure that this will work because it wasn't designed for larger programs and teams, but is it possible to go into your organization and build high-performing teams? And the response came back kind of as a joke, which is, well, I'll have to check with HR. but the kernel here is the manifesto and XP and Scrum practices and now Kanban for flow, and just using that. These are the people that do the work. They build the systems. So we want to have the more the merrier, and we want to have them cooperate in ways that they can build bigger and bigger solutions and keep the solution process agile. So there wasn't such a framework, so I accidentally invented one.
Okay, good, thank you. What I see, a lot of organizations embarked on this Agile movement, and some of them do not see a direct benefit to go beyond Scrum. What is the key reason to follow the SAFe framework for them?
Well, if you don't see any benefit beyond Scrum, you're probably pretty small, and I would question whether or not you know what benefits might be available to you. So we typically see more what I would say a lot of kind of ad hoc Agile. Teams using Scrum and XP taught by different people at different times. Excuse me. Just had to get rid of that. Different taxonomies, different sprint lengths, and not a cooperative effort. So you're talking about groups that have locally optimized for their local meaning, and they're creating small components or features, but that's not the goal. The goal is to create a system. So I think it's a pretty rare case that in a system of any scale, 5 or 10 or 15 kind of ad hoc Scrum teams will naturally produce the intentional architecture, will naturally do the continuous integration, will naturally address the compliant concerns. Some form of structure needs to be added to that to make sure that these other things like intentionality of architecture, the investment in DevOps, the automation that you need to get better and better, you need some governance for that. You need some guidance. You need a mission, a common mission that spans the teams. You need common infrastructure, common language. So that's the reason for any framework. In our case, it's a framework that scales the Agile teams.
Okay, thank you. Particularly here in Germany, many companies are more sort of mid-size size, and very often also family business or have roots there with a couple of thousand employees probably, and probably not a pure IT company though. Why is it interesting for them?
Well, so let's just say a couple thousand employees, and they spend maybe 5 to 10% of their time on R&D. If it's 10%, that says there's a few hundred people already that are building their systems and solutions. I don't think there's a single one of those companies, 500 to 1,000 people, that isn't threatened or opportune by digital transformation. So even if we ignore for the second, marketing and sales and the other functions, manufacturing that may or may not want to follow the skilled Agile framework, there's 100 or a few hundred people there that will benefit greatly by adopting Agile methods. SAFe is a set of Agile methods. It's an integrated system of proven patterns that operates at scale. So I don't know why anybody wouldn't. If somebody was incredibly satisfied with their current performance and everything is working great and they're more profitable than they'd hoped and they see no risk for the future, then I would maintain the status quo. But that would be kind of a rare company.
Okay, good, thank you. And a particular question concerning my activities in the compliance area, the Institute of Compliance and Corporate Governance. We found out that there's a massive shortage on, I would say, this intrinsic compliance culture or candidacy in a company. And I have a hypothesis that Agile management and going along with that the servant leadership may foster also the compliance built in.
No question. If you think about everything we do in Agile, all the things we used to do late, test, validate the system, user acceptance testing, and all the risk we left in, we typically throw compliance into that as well. Oh, I need to get the documents updated. I need to do the full verification and validation. I need to assure that I've met the whatever set of specifications I'm supportive with, and all that risk is left to the end. That's coupled to the fact that compliance in some cases mandates some things. I mean, for example, in the U.S. and the FDA, if you're going to build a medical device, there will be a requirement specification. It's a law. It's not an option. So when people hear requirement specification, SRS specifically, software requirement specification, they hear waterfall. So it says, oh, we'll write it now. Well, the FDA doesn't say that they support no process model. It's our own kind of sequential thinking and stage-gated history that says, well, there has to be a software requirement specification, so I'll write it up front, and then I'll test all my tests to it at the end. It doesn't have to work that way. You can take a story at a time or a feature at a time and do the test, do the compliance check. Let's just say it's verification and validation. There's a step of verification, which is, have I tested this thing inside the sprint? There's a step of validation. Has somebody validated that that functionality is what we want? The simple fact of having developers and testers work together, building in the test automation, and have a product owner that says that's the right thing, that's a big piece of V&V right there. Now, it still has to go all the way through and integrate up to the full end of the system. So what we do is implement compliance incrementally, and we stay in compliance. And we design systems in such a way that you don't have to V&V the entire system if I change a component. And if I do have to retest it, I'm going to run test automation, not manual test. So it's just an awareness of the fact that people do waterfall behavior because that's what we're taught. We add compliance to it, then pretty sure, well, I need to do compliance at the end, but that's not the case at all. So we want to shift all that work left, and the general rule in compliance is automate everything you can, and a lot can be automated, and what can't be automated has to be done in small batches on a cadence. So when you get to the end of that delivery, you've done validation after validation after validation after validation, and now you just have to do the super validation that covers all of those pieces.
Okay, so basically it means then at the end of the day, compliance is already built in.
It is, yep.
Okay, very good.
It's by the way, built-in quality, built-in NFRs, you have to build in compliance as part of that.
Okay, yep. Very good. And my last question, I mean, you use this analogy in SAFe with the art that trains. So where's the SAFe train heading to? What is your view of the future of the SAFe movement for the next 1 to 3 years probably?
So I think we're still putting a good solid understanding between how to organize for value, and trains are delivering value at rates that you saw from the case studies, 30 and 50% higher productivity, much lower cost per function point. We're not at the end of that yet. I think the next stage of that will be a return to the basic software engineering practices, things like collective ownership and pairing and peer review, things like better continuous integration, test-driven development, test automation, behavior-driven development, all the things that are necessary to improve the endemic quality of the system. With the DevOps movement, the goal is to have the end game is to have a team be able to create and release a capability or feature to the market. Well, you have to have all activities in between have to be assured with quality. And I think as an industry, we moved our attention to, wouldn't it be great if we had agile teams and arts and have daily stand-ups and look at our work more frequently and communicate? Yes. Wouldn't it also be great if we wrote better code?
Yes, definitely.
So I think that's the next few years.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.